So what are you guys doing in a situation where you can't collect a freight bill? You've done the work for somebody, a broker contracted you to do a load, you did the load, you're waiting 30, 40, 50 days, and you're not getting paid. What are you doing in this situation? Well, some people choose to write off those invoices, but in this video, I'm gonna teach you how to go after the shipper and the receiver legally. I'm not just gonna talk to you about theoretical things that you can do, I'm actually gonna show you my emails and show you how I was able to collect from a manufacturing plant when I was brokered a load, even though that manufacturing plant already paid that broker. So stay with me. All right, so you have a couple of invoices that are not paid from a broker. You keep calling the broker, you're asking them for payment. Some lines no longer work. I mean, we all know what's happening in the economy. With all these freight brokerages going out of business, what are we supposed to do? Well, I'm gonna teach you in this video what we're supposed to do and how you're gonna get paid. But first, we need to understand the story and we need to understand the legalities behind what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed. So you have a few options. If you have a invoice, okay, so an invoice, somebody paid you to do a load, you have an invoice, that invoice is not getting paid, what are your options? Well, option number one, you can take that invoice, you can write it off as bad debt, and you can continue doing business, and you can say, you know what, forget it, next time I learned my lesson. Option number two that you have is if the broker has a bond, and they should have a bond, you can claim on their bond. That bond, unfortunately, is only $50,000 to $75,000, but that $50,000 to $75,000 does not last long. What do I mean by that? Usually companies that are going out of business, they will start doing brokering and double brokering. And honestly, I mean carriers that are going under or freight brokers that are going under, they can do a lot of damage in very, very short period of time, meaning that by the time you catch on that it was double brokered and turned off their phone lines and shut down, that $50,000 to $75,000 does not last long, and usually the payouts you will not get, the money paid out for your invoice, because there's a lot of companies and a lot of other carriers that are in the same situation as you are, and they got brokered out loads and they were not paid. That goes well above the $75,000, the $50,000 or $75,000 bond. So that's option number two. And option number three is the smoke and gun. It's what you're allowed to do. It's under the Bills of Lading Act. It's what I'm gonna teach you in this video, is how to go after the shipper and the receiver legally. Just one small disclaimer, the only time you cannot use this is if the company officially went bankrupt and you have the bankruptcy papers, or they're under the Bankruptcy Protection Act. Now, 99 out of 100 companies don't usually go out of business and declare bankruptcy. They just shut down their doors, they double broker everything, they commit fraud, and then they close their doors. Now, in those cases, which is most cases, you can go after the shipper and the receiver, and I'm going to teach you that in this video. So first, we need to understand that we have to exhaust all attempts to collect. So there's a broker, and the scenario that I'm going to show you in my emails today, we've exhausted all of our resources to try to collect, and then I'll show you how I went after the shipper. I'm gonna show you how I went after the receiver. I'll show you the kind of excuses that I got on why they didn't want to pay my invoice. But guess what? Okay, I know the rules and I know the law and I know what I can and cannot do, and I'm gonna teach you what you can and cannot do. So we're in a situation, we've exhausted all our resources. Freight broker that brokered me the load did not pay me my invoices. 40, 45, 50, 55 days went by. I can't collect and I've exhausted all my resources. So now what do? I am going after the shipper and the receiver. So I send a separate email to the shipper and I send a separate email to the receiver. Now, you need to understand what happens. There's three things that can happen when you do that. All right, so now we are applying pressure on the shipper and the receiver. So I'm gonna explain to you what you're doing by contacting the shipper and contacting the receiver, the outcomes of what can happen. Then we're gonna go into the excuses of why the shippers and the receivers don't want to pay you. I'm going to go over three different scenarios which I get. Okay, so usually this happens to us about maybe, 3 to 5 loads a year where brokers go out of business, and I get all the excuses in the world of why the shipper and the receiver don't want to pay me. But at the end of the day, I have my ammunition, and you are going to have your ammunition once I'm done this video. When you contact the shipper and the receiver and you start demanding from payment, what are you actually creating? Three things will actually happen from this. Number one, that shipper is going to contact their broker. And a lot of the times that broker brokered it out to somebody else or gave it to a carrier, that carrier gave it to somebody else, that somebody else gave it to somebody else, and somehow you got it. Now, by the time that you got it, and if you're going after the shipper, now that shipper is going to pick up his actual broker. So in this scenario, I will use, I don't know, we'll use TQL or we'll use CH Robinson because, you know, they're huge. So let's say TQL or CH Robinson gave it to ABC Trucking. That ABC Trucking gave it to another brokerage firm. That brokerage firm gave it to you. All right. So when you're contacting the shipper or the receiver, whoever made the arrangements for this load is going to contact the original broker on the line. Let's take, for this example, we'll take CH Robinson or we'll take TQL. Now they're going to call TQL or CH Robinson and say, what the hell is going on? And why is this company coming after me? You need to deal with this right now. Click. A lot of the cases, I get the original broker that was on the line that settles the bill with me and makes this whole thing go away because he doesn't want to damage his relationship with his customer. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is the shipper will put pressure on the actual broker. So for example, let's say this wasn't double brokered or triple brokered. Let's say the manufacturing plant hired a broker, that broker gave you that load. So that manufacturing plant is going to call his actual account rep. Now account reps, they like to save their relationships with their brokers. They like to save their relationships with their manufacturing companies because even if they change companies, they usually go after the same manufacturing companies and they establish relationships. So let's say John works at ABC Supply, a manufacturing company. John is going to call his broker and say, hey, why isn't this carriers coming after me? You need to make this thing go away. Now the broker might, or that relationship that they have, they might put pressure on their company to pay that invoice. You know, he'll go to the accounting department or he'll go to, he knows who's not picking up the phones or who's not paying the invoices, and he'll say, hey, this carrier is going to damage my relationship with my customer. You need to make a payment to that carrier. Things get settled, carrier gets paid, everything goes away.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Yeah! Now, scenario number three, okay? Imagine manufacturing company number one sold supplies to the buyer. So let's take a lumber company. That lumber company sent it to a builder, okay? He sent him a truckload of lumber. So that manufacturing plant now is getting a call from the carrier or is getting an email saying that you owe me money. So there's a customer and there's a buyer, okay? When you get the shipper and the receiver involved, usually the buyer of the product is gonna contact where he bought the stuff from. So he'll call the lumber company and say, hey, what the hell is going on? I bought this freight from you. The freight was all inclusive. It was to be delivered at my location. And now somebody's harassing me for payment. You need to take care of this right now, or else I'm not going to be buying lumber from you anymore. Customer, obviously, you know, it was a $150,000 transaction or a $75,000 trailer. He's not going to make a big deal of $1,500 or $1,800. He's going to pick everybody up to make sure that carrier gets paid because he doesn't want to lose the customer. All right. So I just gave you three scenarios of what can happen when you involve the shipper and the receiver in it. Now we're going to get into the responses, and you'll see from my emails also. Now I'm going to show you this not just in theory. I actually do this for a living. When people don't pay invoices, they come to me and I have to take care of this nonsense. Trust me, I'd rather not take care of it. I'd rather get my freight bills paid, but I'm also not going to write off, you know, freight bills to go to bad debt. It's just not fair to us, the carrier. Initial responses from the receivers. Usually there's three responses. The two most popular responses that I get from these manufacturing plants, and you'll see it in my emails in just 1 minute, is number one, I already paid the broker. Well, my case law in my email that I send the shipper or the receiver indicates that even though we paid, the freight bill is still liable for the actual carrier. And then the second one, okay, I did not arrange for the transportation. Well, I have case law against that also, and it clearly states here in a case that I reference, you know, below, you can click the link. The shipper was liable for the payment of the freight charges even though goods had been shipped on a collect basis. The court added that the person from which the goods are received for the shipment assumed of the obligation to pay freight charges, and his obligation is ordinarily a primary one. This is true even where the bill of lading contains, as here, a provision imposing liability upon the consignee. So it doesn't matter, in all scenarios we covered it. Scenario number one, I already paid the broker. Well, I don't care about that because there's case law that the shipper still and the receiver still owe the carrier the money. And the second one, I did not arrange for the transportation. Well, that goes out to the garbage. Nobody cares about that. You're still liable. Next time, do a better job choosing a broker. And the third one, when you're ignored, so the most popular thing is sometimes, you get ignored, but you have to be adamant and you have to threaten the shipper and the receiver. So I've outlined letters in the link below. There's actually a letter. There's an email 1, email 2, all the templates that I use. But now I'm sure the stuff that you guys all want to see is how I got a manufacturing plant to pay me. Okay, so let's get into all of my emails. Basically, in this situation, I had a load going from Wisconsin, going into the Maritimes, which is New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, and the broker basically just decided not to pay me. We had tried to collect. We have, records of calls being made. We had tried to collect. It was probably 50, 60, 70 days past due, and then we had no choice. We had to get involved, the shipper and the receiver. But again, I always warn in an email that if this is not going to get resolved in X amount of days, I allow them X amount of days, then I will have to get your customers involved, and I name out the customers. And if you click the link below, it'll definitely show you in detail what it is that I do. So let's look at our friend over here. All right, so here is the initial email that I send. Basically, I send an invoice and a demand letter, and I explain to the shipper or the receiver. I'm going to block off names over here, but I'm going to explain to them why under law they owe me money and they have to pay me as long as I can prove that I was the actual carrier on this load. So here, of course, the initial response, will block it off from who. He said, we did not set this shipping up or have anything to do with this. This was set up by a customer or a customer's customer or a customer's customer. I cannot find an order for this customer in our system. So basically, in a nutshell, here's a customer. We're going to block off their names. Here's the customer that I emailed, which is the shipper, and I basically threatened that I'm going to go after him, and he sends me this beautiful email that, oh, you know what? Of course, number 2, I did not arrange for the transportation. Well, I really don't care if you set up the transportation or not. You're still liable. Let's get into my response to him. Good afternoon. I totally understand where you're coming from. Again, don't be a dick. These guys paid their invoice. They got screwed by somebody, so be nice to them, all right? There are rules regarding unpaid freight bills, okay? I'm just stating the facts. I don't want to get into it with anybody. I'm just stating the facts. There are rules regarding unpaid freight bills, and anyone named on the bill of lading is liable for the carrier's payment. I have added some case law to my email. Maybe you can seek some legal advice before I pursue further steps. I am hoping to settle this matter with you. I would really like to avoid the paperwork to file materials. So I'm saying in an indirect way that I do not want to file materials to small claims court because I will rip you apart over there. But please, okay, I would really like to save my time is valuable. I'm sure your time is valuable, and I really don't want to spend any more time that I already did on the $1,700 or $1,800 freight bill. Okay, I was hoping to settle. Please let them know you want to settle the matter with them. I would appreciate you getting back to me, okay? So guys, all the templates to all my emails to everything is in the link below. Now, let's look at their response. Now all of a sudden, they respond. I'm looking into this with the company they ordered it through. So remember when I said that 3 things will happen when you get the shipper and the receiver involved. They will pick somebody up. They don't want to be dragged into small claims or court. These are all legal fees. These are all, extra time that nobody has. So here he says, I found the company who received the product. So he found who the buyer was and was supposed to pay. The buyer was supposed to pay for it, was brought out by another company. So now I have reached out to them about this. Again, customer is the best person that can put pressure on everybody. Okay, which is exactly what happened here. Right after this point, we had a phone call with this person. I wish I had it recorded, but I didn't. But basically, I was just going over my letter and I was just going over the fact that, even though you paid for it and even though you did not arrange for the transportation, please, there are case law against this. If you want to consult with somebody, but I need to get paid, all right? And I'll give you some time to deal with it, and I'll give you some time. You'll see how fast things start moving once you start threatening them that, I'm going to have to file materials and then you're going to have to defend. But at the end of the day, I gave you all the case law, so there's really no point about it. Make me an offer, make me go away. So after the conversation, here we go. Happy Friday, Ronen, on a Friday, okay? I just got an email from Brenda that worked at this this company, we're gonna cross it off, and now works for a new company. I really don't care where they work, what they were, and brought a company that brought it, and she said the operations manager told her the payment has been sent for the invoice now. It looks like we're going to get a happy ending to the situation. So trust me, this person is relieved. I am relieved. Everybody's relieved. I just want to get paid for my work. I don't want anything else. Okay, so check out my next email that I sent them, okay? Good afternoon. Wanted to thank you for the payment. So I received my money from this manufacturing plant. They paid on somebody else's behalf. I really don't care who paid. I got paid. But look at what I did next. I also wanted to know, okay, I wanted to confirm and thank you for the payment, okay? I also wanted to know if you can direct me to your traffic manager. We would like to service your freight directly with our own assets. It will avoid the situation in the future. Can you advise how ET Transport can haul for you directly? All right, now I'm not gonna make this a 45-minute video, but I want you to know that they did end up giving me the traffic manager's name. Again, it's very early stages because they have an annual RFP, but the last thing that they want is to get into the mix of all this. So I tell them, guys, why not use me directly to avoid all of this in the future? And then that light bulb hits them and says, you know what? You're 100% right. And you know why they're going to use my service? Because I wasn't a dick about it, because I explained to them, guys, let's do this amicably. And that's the kind of people that they want to work with. You know, when you see people's true colors, when there are problems, and you can see how people solve problems. Some of them go bananas and some of them solve problems as they come along, which is what this manufacturing plant did. And guess what? This manufacturing plant is gonna end up being my customer, all because of some guy that didn't end up paying me my freight bill. To summarize all of this, guys, all of my emails, I've built templates for it. My initial request, my second request, my threatening email to the broker, threatening that I'm going to contact the shipper and the receiver, naming the shipper, the receiver, and then my templates of contacting the shipper and the receiver with the case law that I cite on it. This is real powerful information, and yes, I end up doing this myself, even though there is a legal team, but I end up taking this stuff upon myself. I've done it for many years, okay, doing the exact same thing. I've perfected it, and I wanted you guys out there to have this material also. So hopefully you learned something from this video. Make sure you share the knowledge, share the information with people that are in our industry. This information needs to get out, because when people know that you're gonna be doing this, you're gonna be a lot more likely to get paid for your freight bills, and maybe people will stop messing around, and all this nonsense and fraudulent activity is gonna stop in our industry. Hopefully you learned something from this video. I'm Ronen, R-O-N-E-N, and I'll catch you in my next video.